when it comes to dealing with some of our patrons and technology, one of the hardest ones we end up having to deal with on a regular basis sometimes is some of our seniors. Now, statistics have shown that if someone is 60 and under, there's a pretty good chance that they're relatively proficient with computers. In fact, 67% of seniors, even older than that, have a computer at their house, but only half of them have internet access. So even if they do have a computer, they don't necessarily have access to the internet. And as you've no doubt found out interacting with some of them aren't all that interested in it. They're just forced to. Unfortunately, today, almost everything is going straight to the internet. For example, prescriptions. They're ordering their prescriptions on the internet. They're making appointments with doctors on the internet. This is April. Everybody and their brother is in here trying to do taxes. And they come in asking for forms, and there's not even paper forms available most of the time. It's getting very, very hard. In fact, I've talked to several people who had to order over the phone income tax forms to be mailed to their house so they can mail them back. It's that complicated at this point. So it's pretty much mandatory the more you use it. However, you run into probably at least 15 to 20% who really just, at this thing, they just don't want to do it. And it's more of they couch it as a fear more than anything else, which is why I refer to it as technophobia. Now, there's break it open two basic fears that most of them deal with. The first one is difficulty fear. This is the obvious one. It's just too hard. I'm too old to learn. I'm doing this presentation. My hair is gray. It's not too hard to learn. But they feel like, having grown up, a lot of them, that there's always has to be an expert with you. In fact, it doesn't matter who the expert is. I mean, they will go to a clothing store and expect a salesperson to be an expert on clothing or shoes or whatever else. So, but they always expect there to be the expert to it. Also, technology has changed so much that what used to be really difficult technology, I mean, I remember taking a community college course when I first graduated from high school on computer programming. I thought, this is a new field, this is going to be great. And they tried to teach me assembly language, which is so insanely difficult, I gave up. Had I held on for another 2 or 3 years, that same college was offering much easier things, much easier ways of learning it. So, and that's one of the problems they have now. They mix up computer programming to just ordinary operation of the computer, or even just getting on the internet. You don't have to know any kind of special codes to use Google. And also, because so many young people, such as yourselves, are using technology all the time, and it just seems second nature, they just assume that only younger people have that natural skill. It's kind of a catch-22. They feel like they don't know anything about computers, but they also can't learn because the only place to learn about computers is on the internet. There's also another kind of anti-technology thing that kind of goes with this that you run into some people. They're tired about the fact that things that used to be businesses are now just going away, and this is true. You know, even Best Buy, an electronics store, has a term for people who come in, look at everything, and then go buy it on Amazon. Post offices are closing. Why? People are using the regular mail less. Jobs are closing. Why? Because sometimes there's no people there. Another 20 years, there may be no taxi drivers or truck drivers if self-driving cars and trucks, God forbid, ever actually work. Some of them also just reject this stuff because they want to talk to a person. And all of us have had that problem when there's something wrong with our technology, among other things, and you try and get a service person, and you never talk to a service person. You go through 15 numbers and try and do it. And they assume that experience translates to everything on a computer. The other one, and this is a more recent one, is fear of hackers. I saw it on NCS, and hackers can do everything. I mean, I've actually run into people who actually mention that. Well, it's true, and sometimes television shows, and especially for retirees who watch a lot of television, everything on TV seems to talk about crime, cybercrime, hackers. Hackers can just, you know, they're like wizards. You know, they can just snap their fingers and incredible things can happen. Your car drives off a cliff or whatever else. And there's teeny tiny bit of truth to that, but it's not as big as they think it is. I know, like my wife, first time she ever heard the term ransomware, malware, was watching TV on NCIS, and then I said, "Oh yeah, I've heard about it." And then they took this wonderful new true thing and proceeded to make it completely ludicrous by, among other things, having two people type on the exact same keyboard in an effort to try and ward off the hackers. And this also feeds into the difficulty fear because the hackers are portrayed as these super geniuses. In reality, actually, most people who perform criminal acts with computers, even though they fall under the heading of hacker, are actually what they call script kiddies. They're guys who just know about as much as it takes to use Microsoft Office. They just go on the internet, find the bad stuff, and just run it. They don't actually know all much behind it. And there's also, of course, that mention of the dark web, which is, they somehow end up attaching to almost all internet activity, not just the criminal activity. So, a few ways to reach fear. The difficulty fear. First thing I always do is pull out my cell phone. And then I ask them to pull out their cell phone. Even a flip phone, a cheap prepaid flip phone, has internet access. In fact, I've run into people who've used it to access the internet, and they don't even really think about the fact that they have a computer in their hand that they're using to access the internet. I go, what do? You type in what you're wanting to into the search engine in your phone. Take them to a regular computer. How do you think to do it? Type it into your phone, type it into the computer. Some of them, if they have an Android phone, it's even easier because Android uses the same basic applications as Google. So you take them to a computer, pull up Google, you click the little button in the corner that shows all the apps. They know how to use these. They've been using them on their phone. They're just not used to thinking this is a computer. Even though the cell phone that I'm partly recording this on actually has more memory and power than the first 3 computers I owned. In fact, actually the latest iPhone is more powerful than this laptop that I'm projecting this on the screen with. The technology goes that fast. But they use it all the time and don't get it. So if you can show them something that they are already familiar with, it's one of the easiest way to do it. And do everything in short, simple steps. Email. Email is what everything in the world is based on first. You can't perform any business online. You can't do anything online unless you have an email account. Ask them if they have an email account. If they have a smartphone, they have an Android phone or an iPhone, chances are 9 out of 10 they have an email account or a Gmail account. Show them how to access it on a regular computer. If they don't have anything like that, then setting them up with a Gmail account takes 2 minutes, and once they realize how easy it is, they'll start using it more and more often. 15, 20 minutes is really all it takes to just step by step say, okay, look what it's asking for. It's asking for your name, your address, etc. Type it in. And the only thing you don't want to do is type it in for them. That's not your business. And that's one of the things that you do have a problem with sometimes is they do want you to do it for them. Another thing is to pull up a social media page that has, forgive the word, old people on it. There's all kinds of senior-only pages all over Facebook and everything. You know, ask them. Somebody wanted to do Facebook and said, "You're supposed to be able to see people you haven't heard before." So I said, "Okay, give me the name of somebody you went to high school with," and had them type it in. And there's 20 people, of course, that has the same name. But they're like, "Oh, it's that simple. I just got to type it in there." I mean, if it's 2-finger typing, it just takes longer, but they'll get it. Show them something that other people are still using it that way. With a hacker fear, it's mostly a matter of showing them that this is not the huge danger that it's always presented to be. In fact, there's not even, the term hacker doesn't necessarily even mean a bad guy. The term actually started out as just anybody who hacks into, in other words, plays with technology. Nowadays, the term can be good white hat guys who test it professionally, gray hat guys who just say, hey, tells their friend, hey, I broke into your internet. You might want to change your password. And then, of course, the bad guys. Even the dark web itself that everybody talks about all the time isn't all that dark. In fact, the word is often used interchangeably with another phrase called deep web. All that is things on the internet that you don't find in a simple Google search. They don't want to be found in Google search. Hospitals have dark websites because they have patient records they need to keep quiet. The federal government created the dark web. Originally in fact, the Tor browser that all the hackers use was created by the U.S. Navy because they wanted a way for sailors and intelligence to send messages to each other from embassies and that sort of thing and not have it easily found. Today, only 3% of even what's called the dark web or deep web is actually criminal activity. Now granted, it's huge because there's just so many people on the internet. When you have 3 billion people using the internet, 3% is still several hundred thousand to a couple million people. But it's no worse than any other crime area. In fact, it's a lot less than the number of population, the general population that are involved in criminal activity. You can also, with the hacker fear, just give them some simple tips on being safe. The simplest one of all is, and if they're a senior, they'll know exactly what you're talking about, treat it like it's mail. Because there's been all kinds of mail scams throughout the years that they've probably dealt with. Where, if it's too good to be true, yeah, it's still too good to be true, whether it's on the internet or not. If they get an email and they treat it like a Gmail, okay, does the FBI send you a warning that you're doing something illegal in the U.S. mail? No. If the FBI thinks you're doing something illegal, they're going to come to your house, knock on your door, and take you away. Even if it's just for questioning. Okay? Same thing goes on the internet. They get to some site and something pops up, you have violated, blah, 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 because it was very popular for a while. Say, no. If you get an email from it, I'm like, no. If your best friend says, hey, here's this great idea, well, it's no different than telling them something along the lines of the old kind of chain letters that you used to get. Same thing happens now, only there's a little bit more criminal intent behind it than it used to be. Also, show them some of the simplest things to do. If they're on the internet, pull up an internet page, and at the very top, especially if you're using Google Chrome, you'll see HTTPS. In fact, there'll be a little padlock there if you're looking at Google Chrome. And just emphasize, the S needs to be on there. If it's not, then that means that some of the security protocols from sending an email or anything else aren't going into effect. Something that simple. If they get an email that says, oh, you're someone wrong with your account, click this, and they look down, and what's supposedly Wells Fargo Bank has HTTP and no S, no. Because every major corporation uses the security protocol now. Also, remind them never to use Social Security online except unless it's very, very, very rare circumstance. Like the IRS, if you're filing taxes online, still demands your Social Security card. And of course, your Social Security demands your Social Security number. Otherwise, job applications, anything else, never use it. And they shouldn't ask for it. If they do, it's not legit. And of course, passwords. Only thing I always tell them to do is just come up with an eight-letter phrase, word, doesn't matter what, and throw in some weird symbols. Yes, there's more complicated ways and rhythms, but this is the easy way to do it. What I usually say is, does the word you pick have a letter A in it? And use the @ symbol. Does it have an S in it? Use the $sign instead. They can remember it pretty easily. They ask you any questions about things like antiviruses or anti-malware or this kind of stuff. Just tell them that the simple fact that most of the big names are all good. There's none bigger than the other. It's not our job to sell anything. If they ask what you use and you're willing to mention what you use, that's fine. But do mention that half of them actually have a free version now. So if they have nothing on their computer, feel free to tell them that. And if they have any questions that sound odd, don't be surprised. I had a lady who was telling me about how the fact that she couldn't understand why her computer was slowing down. Then when I got to talking a little more, she says because she didn't leave any space on her hard drive. I go, well, why? Her reasoning was, if the hard drive is full, no one can put a virus on it. And so I said, well, you might want to, and I showed her how to get a simple cleaner program to kind of clean up all the jumbled old files and everything that just piles up inside of a system. There we go. Anyway, I just happened to accidentally skip past the do's and don'ts, but there are just 2 or 3 things, and half of it's common sense, but do speak in a normal tone. One thing seniors pick up on very well is, and especially if you've been working here in the library and you deal with kids all the time, natural inclinations, you talk down, you talk a little softer, a little quieter, a little nicer. You're trying to teach a senior something like that, you talk a little quieter, a little softer, a little nicer, they think you're treating them like a child. And they're going to have one of 2 reactions. Either they're going to reject it, or they're going to say, oh, they just think I'm an idiot, which feeds into the whole fear about it being too difficult. Just talk in a conversational tone. When you get frustrated, if they start listening, just conversational tone. Never talk in a softer tone than you normally talk. Do not, under any circumstances, do everything for them. We've all done it at least once because we were getting frustrated at something or they were just hammering at us. But you can't. I had someone just the other day who wanted me to fill out this form for him. Among other things, it asked for his Social Security number, and it was a tax form, so it was a legitimate reason. And I said to him, I can't type in your Social Security number, sir. Just type it in. And literally, he couldn't just tap, tap, tap. He was that intimidated by it. And I said, well sir, just all you have to do is just type it in, letter, number at a time, the numbers are at the top. And he was just one of those who just steadfastly refused. And he says, well, libraries do it for you. Somebody told him they'd do it for you at the library. They meant help you find it. They didn't mean to do it. He says, that's what my son said. And I finally talked to him, and I had Judy talk to him a little bit. And he finally got, okay, you can't put in the information for me. And I said, no, we can't put it in for you. He says, now if you have someone that, if you just absolutely are this scared of it, you can have a relative come in and put it in if you need to. That's what he ended up doing, and having his son come in and do it. You will find occasionally some who, no matter how much you try and walk them through, are just steadfast and not wanting to do it. And in this case, it goes back to he was one of the people who didn't feel like he should have to do it on the internet. You know, he should be able to just sit there and write out everything. Unfortunately, in his case, he couldn't do a 1040 form. I was happy to print him off one, but he had a ton of questions and other things that no, you're going to have to go online and get some professional help with it. And also if you do everything for them, they're A, going to get used to it, they're B, not going to learn it, and finally it's going to prove to them they can't do it. If you're just trying to speed up the process and say, okay, so let me do this, okay, there. Yeah. Okay, what about next? And then you go, then you do this. You keep doing that, yeah, it speeds it up, but they're not actually learning it. So make sure that they do as much of the typing as possible. Just make sure that there's enough people here so that you can stand there for a little bit and let them 2-finger type if that's what they need to. You know, if you're going to type in anything for them, because you do have a bunch of customers and you're a little bit pressed for time, just type in a few basic things just to show him what to do, and then you can leave them and come back to it. And if you've got an old fart like me sitting around, sometimes you have someone who's a little bit closer to their age group, they're a little bit less intimidated also. Sometimes they just assume, especially in your guys' case, because you're relatively young, that it's just natural for you and you never had to learn it or anything. And sometimes it'll be a little bit more stubborn because you're a little bit younger staff. If you find that and you an old apostle like me lying around somewhere, you can help them with it. Once they see a senior do it, somebody else who's older or a senior do it, they usually say, oh, okay, and then they'll come back to you later on and ask for more input. Okay. I call it questions, suggestions because I also like hearing, okay, I had this happen, and this is how I solved it. So if you have one of those, feel free to tell me too, not just any questions you might have.
There's always people that want, just, there's this one lady that comes out, that she comes in anymore, but she's always trying to buy something on Walmart's website.
I know of who you speak.
And she never does it herself, and I never do it for her either. So she never gets anything done, she just sits there and just watches the computer screen.
I did that, but I also did it enough times and then would say, okay, she finally had me do a few things. I said, okay, I had her get a piece of paper and start writing stuff down. And the last time she was in here, she asked for help, but it was like 3 questions because she gets easily confused, very easily confused. And so, it's taken 3 times now to get her to understand what the back button does. That you mess up, hit the arrow, you're literally going back to where, I can figure out the phrase, you're going back to where you started from. It's better to start over than try it from here if you don't know how to get there from here. And in her case also, I also just stopped, and I actually would have told her a few times, I can't really do this for you. You need to do it. And then I would step and come back, and then she would eventually, after a couple of times of doing this, then she's like, okay. She figured out she knows that she's going to have to get a little bit of help from us. And so she asked for the help that she needs, not the help that she wants.
Right.
I mean, that's that problem. And in her case, she does seem to have a few problems here and there, I think, processing some things. But I know she was in here a couple of times also with her a friend of hers. And the reason why she ended up asking help from me the first time was because her friend gave up. And but yeah, it used to be when first couple times she came in, I had, I think, 20 hash marks of questions asked, and I had 3 or 4 hash marks in the 20 minutes per hash mark time spent. But the last time she came in, she actually, because again, help a little bit at a time, a step at a time. In this case, it had to be step at a time, session at a time that she's come in. But she got enough that she sat down, she logged herself on, she got on, she asked for help Google because, mostly not even her fault, because as you probably noticed that sometimes you go in there now, our home page doesn't pop up, the 404 message pops up instead. And so I have to open another tab for her. She's not quite used to the idea of opening a fresh tab yet. Open the fresh tab for her, and then when she saw the Google search bar in front of her, she said, okay. And then I stepped away, and then she stepped out later on, about 10 minutes later, she was on the website and everything. Again, step at a time, step at a time, step at a time. It's taken a few more extra steps for her, but she's pretty much doing most of it on her own. Occasionally, I have to remind her that, because she uses prepaid cards a lot, that there's only going to be so much on the card. And if you don't know how much is on the card, then it's not going to help you much. So like the last time she came in, she actually held it up and said, and she had the paper torn off the packet. She just opened the card, so I knew she had the full amount on the card at least. But yeah, Candace is smiling because she's had the same customer we all have. Anything else?